For our final conversation of the day, we're going to focus on the policy solutions required to get this done. We need Congress. We need Washington. We need the people who make the laws to talk in a bipartisan fashion about this, to come up with the best solutions, and that's exactly what you're going to hear today. Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester represents the state of Delaware. She's a leading voice in Congress on workforce issues, the future of work, and really building an economy that works for everyone. Senator Ted Budd represents the state of North Carolina. He is a current small business owner, so he brings really interesting perspective to this conversation. An entrepreneur by trade, he brings that private sector experience to his role in Congress and focuses on economic growth and supporting American industry. So I'm really happy, delighted to welcome both the senators to the stage. Thank you, Senator, very much. Thank you, Senator.
Thanks so much.
I always said my favorite days on my show were when I had a bipartisan conversation together. So I'm just delighted to be able to have this in real life in person today.
Those are our favorite days too.
This is like a really long elevator ride for us, right? We're all getting along.
We're going to just keep it longer and it's going to be great. Thank you both for your time and the different perspective you bring, but the shared goal I think you bring and your constituents bring. So let's start there with the voice of the constituents. That's why you do this work that really is around the clock. And we have a lot of hope now in terms of reimagining what can happen from the private sector, from, big important companies like Google bringing people into the same room, and then big important people like the two of you making the laws to make sure we have sort of rules of the road in all of this. So when we look at things like the Pell Act being implemented to cover short-term workforce programs, investments like the Workforce of the Future Act, I'm interested, and I'll start with you, Senator. What are your constituents coming up to you and saying when you're home, and what are they asking?
Well, I think at this moment, a couple of people have talked about, is this the Terminator, or are we in the era of Star Trek?
Okay.
And I think I've heard people speak from a place of fear.
Yeah.
Fear of losing their jobs, fear of what impact it might have, but also speaking from a place of hope and what potential opportunities it presents. And so as I started this work, I came into Congress in 2016. I got elected to the House.
You were in the same class.
Yes, we were. We were
classmates together.
And so we're still together. And I came in and I had just lived in Shanghai for 5 years before that.
Oh, wow.
And had heard a lot about artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, and also where we were as a country. Mm-hmm. And so I started a bipartisan future work caucus in the House because I felt as Democrats and Republicans, we weren't talking about something that's going to affect everybody. And I really didn't want people to get left behind. Mm-hmm. And so in this moment, I don't know if it's my algorithm or what, but I get an AI article every single day that's talking about, people being afraid of losing their jobs. Yeah. We've trained people to be coders, and now the AI is doing the coding, but it also frees people up to do other things. And it's the same with back in the day when ATMs came in and people were afraid there will be no tellers, but now tellers can provide real quality time with their customers. And so for me, I'm trying to find that balance, and it's been great to work with others, because I think there are some strange bedfellows that are working on things together, because this is touching every single one of us, and our health, our wealth, and our national security are all impacted.
No question about it. Yeah. Senator Budd, you bring such interesting perspective because as you represent your state and your constituents in the Senate, you run a small business. And so you know what it means to hire and retain and to see jobs change and evolve. How are you thinking about this, but specifically making sure that any federal money or state money, any federal grants are tied to specific high quality jobs, but I would add to that, lasting jobs. It's not enough to be like, here's the grant for 6 months or a year for this job. Well, what about after that? What about the new economy that's being born?
Yeah, any job that I've ever been in, I've always been the nerd, even if it's in a non-technical field. If that's in agriculture, which I grew up, or if that's in a facility services that cares for great buildings like this. I own a retail store now, so how do we use AI to serve our customers better? But I remember the first day walking in, and we'd been talking about AI over the Zoom calls. I have to do it periodically over Zoom, and we just did our quarterly meeting, but I was refreshed this time going back and saying, remember a year ago, I came in with the financials and I had these great tools that are produced by this great company here actually do a financial review on the P&L and the balance sheet and the statement of cash flows. And everyone, you could see the blood drain out of their face. And these are folks that are in their 50s, they're probably between their 40s and their 60s. And the blood drained out of their face thinking that they were going to lose their jobs as a result of this new technology. And I was like, how insensitive of me. I need to make sure that I'm communicating that this is opportunity. No. We're going to do more. We're going to take the same people and we're going to do more. And it's going to reduce the frustrations of work rather than try to do the same amount with less people, meaning people lose their jobs. So I think this is going to augment our jobs. I think this is going to make us stronger, more focused, and it's going to maximize the humanity rather than the droll nature of some of the work that we have to face.
One of the really interesting conversations, perhaps one of the most important, is around the framework for all of this. Google released a framework that is focused on, as you both know, sort of assessing economic impact with better data. Data is central to all this. How do you equip workers with the AI skills that are useful for the 6 months ahead, but the 6 years sort of beyond? And encouraging the adoption of tools that empower partnership rather than replacement. I keep coming back to the idea of with, not instead of. What Senator Budd has worked, do you think, when you look at the framework that will make the rules of the road?
Well, I think it's how we start. We all have priorities. We have a million things that Lisa could work on or I could work on in my office, and we have to narrow it down. And of course, we have things that come across our desk that we never knew we were signing up for. But the number one focus in my office, and has been for the last 3 years, is workforce in the age of artificial intelligence. We have to be ready. So we had bipartisan legislation, and a lot of it got put into the Working Families and Tax Cut. That was reconciliation. That went on party line. But a lot of the components were actually bipartisan, including the Pell Act. That takes Pell money, Pell grants, and uses it to apply to short-term re-education. A lot of us are blessed with 4-year and master's degrees and so on, probably some PhDs in this room, but not all of us need that. Some of us need something that's short-term, let's get traction, and let's get in the workforce, and let's make it a stackable credential. So we can use Pell money to get people engaged in the workforce, get them working. They don't have to be offline. They don't have to accumulate debt. And as the economy evolves, as we learn what these AI tools do, and we don't know the future fully, but as it evolves, we can certainly evolve education along with it.
Senator Blunt Rochester, you're a former labor secretary as well, so this issue very, very close to your heart. We heard David Lauder speaking, a Google fellow speaking earlier today, about how recent history has shown us that wage insurance can really work, sort of akin to an earned income tax increase, where it incents work, but also helps make up the difference when, yes, jobs will change. Yes, some jobs will go away as others grow and evolve. Do you think that needs to be part of the conversation more broadly? And is that a bipartisan area?
Well, I would say, first of all, this conversation has to be bipartisan. Mm-hmm. I mean, it truly does. And
it is, am I right? Like it is in the halls of Congress.
I would say it is definitely bipartisan. There are some areas, whether it is dealing with data, because we know we need the data to even see what the real impact of AI is on. So we've got legislation there, whether it is the issue of child safety. Like there are a lot of different things that we would agree on. But I do think there's a fundamental question about what will work be. I mean, I think people are asking themselves that when you hear some of the largest companies who, have invented incredible things, products on AI, who are saying there may be no jobs. I don't think we'll get to that point. Yeah. But I do think there are questions about what work will be. And one of the things that I'm putting forward is everybody knows about DARPA and how the internet and GPS came up. We want to do an ARPA-L to look at labor and what is the future? What data are we collecting? How are we being more real time? Labor market information that really is tied to what we need in this moment. And what the world of work will look like. Even your conversation before about quantum.
Yeah.
I do a Shark Tank competition in my staff at the end of every year
Your office sounds fun.
Oh, I'm like, look, I want to know, bring me your best. Bring me what you got. And we have a Shark Tank competition. And one of the ideas that was put up was quantum corridors. We're talking AI, but others are talking quantum. And I think the challenge for us as lawmakers is that the technology is moving very fast and it's sometimes breaking things. Like, I still have concerns about bias. I still have concerns about the digital divide when a thing is offered and it's free and then next year you got to pay for a different level of service. I still have some concerns about those things. But at the same time, I know the opportunity to solve massive problems that we as society have faced. And so for me, I love jobs. I love work. My team knows if I had another middle name, it'd be Lisa Blunt Jobs Rochester. That's our metaphor. But it requires us to work together.
Yeah, well, you are. I mean, you being on the stage is a good example of that. And Senator Budd, I've been thinking a lot about, like, yes, there will be jobs. I'm not in the doomsday camp.
Same.
I'm in the reality camp. No rose-colored glasses, but enhanced. But I think the MIT study that we've talked about today shows you sort of a wave and a ripple rather than a tsunami, if you will. There was a really interesting BCG report out last week talking about more jobs changing than replaced as well. But, I think about like North Carolina and my father-in-law makes furniture for a living. And, I think about like the great furniture industry in North Carolina and all of these things that will change because of AI, but the human touch in them is still going to remain. Do you think, Senator Budd, that we need to be having this discussion around what is America's social compact with our citizens, and what does that include? Meaning, as this technology changes so rapidly, what is our promise to each other? There's been talk about a 4-day work week, what that would look like. Anyone who's talked to me in the last 24 hours knows I'm really big on this issue of time. And, we get to choose what we do with the time that we will inevitably get back because of AI. And we have to make wise choices. If that means more time at the dinner table with our family, that's a good thing.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Do we need a new social compact?
I think what we have to watch for, and by the way, thanks for the story about your dad being a furniture maker. I'm thinking of major disruptions and changes with NAFTA 1.0 in the early 1990s, and how that devastated parts of North Carolina, close to where I live in rural North Carolina, outside of Winston-Salem, north of Charlotte. We lost our furniture industry. We lost a lot of our textile industry. Those went together. And now we're starting to see a lot of it come back, but in a higher tech way. So the jobs changed. Those people moved into engineering and other advanced manufacturing. So the unemployment rate stayed low. So those jobs were changing from one to another. When it comes to the social compact question, I think it's very fair. But rather than having a top-down government-sponsored answer on that.
You mean you don't want more big government?
Absolutely not. But I would say it's a fair question.
Yeah.
And we want
or what could that look like?
We want to be very responsible, but I think what we have to look for is this harming us? And how do we look to harms?
Is what harming?
Like for instance, if someone is taking images and applying them to a female and distributing in a school, we've seen heartbreak like that. How do we use legislation like the Take It Down Act, which was bipartisan, to make sure that we're reducing harms? How do we make sure that, or on the positive side, how do we use things like the Pell Act I mentioned earlier to retrain folks to get them back into the workforce more quickly? So let's reduce harms and be a bit of a shock absorber for folks that are retraining.
Do you have thoughts on this idea of a social compact? And is there a way to do it that isn't just top down, federal government down?
Yeah, I mean, thinking back to the conversation about what is work and thinking about even worker protections, I think one of the things that we've heard in some of the conversation are ways that even on a manufacturing floor, I was just in a manufacturing plant, and how creating more safety opportunities for people. Those are good things. But I do think back to what does work look like, and what does it mean to, when you say social compact, are we going to have unemployment insurance? Are we going to deal with folks who are displaced because, and that's one of the things that we talk about, again, it goes back to understanding. And we need the data to be able to understand what the real impacts are. I think that, I look around the world. I've lived and traveled and worked in over 33 countries.
Wow.
And yeah, 64, you get a lot in. And I will tell you, there are things, like I hear from employers that the fact that we don't focus on childcare, which is also one of those things that
Amen.
that makes us not competitive. The fact that, we have seniors who are getting older and we want to make sure that they are not scammed or frauded.
Yeah.
Like, these are things that we have to pay attention to. And so for me, I think that the social compact needs to change. It just like work is changing. And I will say, like I said, I think I said this before, the technology is moving very fast. We have to catch up with it. And that is a broader conversation for us as a society.
Yeah.
Could I throw in one thing
Please.
on work? So let's remember that work is not the enemy here.
Right.
So will AI replace some work? Yes, but you can go back and you can look at, I think it was Jeffrey Hinton, the father of modern AI. We've been talking AI since 1950s, but the world woke up around 2022 about this. So we've been looking at it intensely for at least 4 years. But he said there will be no more radiologists. Right now, I'm sure if you're a radiologist or at whatever level, or even a
I think there are
radiological
more
tech,
now. Yeah.
they need more.
Yeah.
And then we said, you get some coding assistance. It comes out on multiple platforms, and we don't need any coders anymore. But now they say we need more coders. Over 50% of the CEOs say that they're thinking that because of AI, they need more work. They want to do more hiring rather than layoffs. Yeah. So I'm very optimistic, but I think AI has the opportunity to reduce the meaningless aspects of work and enhance the human aspects of work.
You two dedicate your life and so many hours of your weeks and months and years to public service. That's what you do for us, and we're grateful. At the same time, the body that you represent isn't known for moving fast.
Right.
Is this in a moment in time when, through American history has shown us, though, Congress can and does move fast when it is of the utmost crucial importance. Do you feel like this is one of those moments?
I feel like even the CHIPS and Science Act that we did in a bipartisan way, I remember having conversations. I was in the House at that time, and I remember having conversations in our caucus about this sense of urgency that we have to have. And I feel that's the same here. And back to the point about work, it gives people purpose. It gives people
it's everything.
meaning.
That purpose part is everything about it.
It really is. And so to me, again, I think this is such a transformational inflection point for us as a country. And it's something we must do together. We must, and that's why you will see some strange bedfellows in this space. I mean, truly, I see Josh Hawley working with Dick Blumenauer, like Blumenthal. I mean,
Richard Blumenthal.
I know, yeah. I mean, I'm seeing all kinds of strange bedfellows because we come at it from different perspectives in different states. But this is the moment. And for those who, don't even think about like quantum being a geeky thing or something, or I never thought of myself as geeky either, but I love supply chains and stuff like that. But even on mainstream TV, the show Paradise is like talking about, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen the rest of season 2, but even they're talking about quantum. Wow. And so we have an opportunity in this moment. And we got to do it together. Yeah. If nothing else, if you walk out of here with nothing else, that's the message. But we got to do it together.
We've talked a lot over the past 24 hours here about the importance of storytelling. And I know I say this as a journalist, so I have a bias toward media, but I think having you two on a stage like this, or having you two on, news programs together and others like you, is so important, so people can see we both think that this needs to happen together is really important. I think, like many people in this room, probably in the last couple of days, Senator Budd watched the incredibly compelling interview that Senator Ben Sasse did with the New York Times, and just a giant of a man and a leader, I think, in so many ways. And he talked at the end of that interview about the importance of time. And if you haven't seen it, he has a terminal cancer diagnosis. And he talked about the importance of AI in terms of the medical promise, right, for people with these diagnoses. And he also talked about the importance of what we choose to do with our time. So when you think about this issue from just that perspective, from a human lens and a human perspective of what all it can give us, both from a medical standpoint and from a giving us back our time standpoint, I wonder what your thoughts are as you work to shape whatever the rules of the road will be around this.
Yeah, it's going to make the most of our moments, and I think
I love
as
that.
we
The most of our moments.
as we engage with AI, we're actually going to realize not only did it not give us back all the time we thought it would, it's going to make us actually operate much more intensely because we're going to be operating closer to the zone of what we think we were made for. So that can almost become an addiction in itself. So we have to be careful that in using these tools that we're not chasing our own tail endlessly.
Oh,
but
that's
I think it will be. I'm for them. I think it's very productive. But I read about 5 newsletters a day, and I'm like, I can't believe all the tools that came out since yesterday. I'm like, how do I get to all the tools? You know, whether it was me working on cars and computers as a kid, or whether it's me seeing tools now for other purposes, you just can't engage them enough. But I think it will increase the focus of our humanity. And when it comes to time, I mean, you think specifically of Senator Sass, the catching of things early. And one of the challenges with pancreatic cancer is that and he talks about this a lot, is that it's not caught until stage 4 because it's not painful until that point.
Right.
But using AI with radiology, with imaging, driving down the cost of that, using robotics to produce this medical equipment more cheaply so that more people have access to it. Then somebody, for just a few dollars at a mall or a shopping center, can get these early scans, because in that case in particular, all of us have been touched by cancer in one way or another.
Yes.
Then early detection happens. So I think the bottom line is it leads to abundance, and I think that helps us make the most of our time.
It seems like you just said also the potential for increased humanity.
I do.
Making the most of our moments. I wonder what you think.
So I am a pragmatic optimist. I try to be, but I am concerned about critical thinking. I am concerned about creativity. I mean, the fact that there's actually now this soul gospel artist who is like top of the charts and is not AI generated. It's like a soul singer with no soul, like that, you know. And so I do want to make sure that as we think about the potential, that's part of our responsibility as well, is to make sure that the right guardrails, the appropriate guardrails are in place and that we think these things through. You mentioned time. I think if nothing else, the 2 big words for me are, as I guide my work, is love, because I care about people, but also, you know, I got into this because of the unexpected death of my husband from a ruptured Achilles tendon. Blood clots went to his heart and lungs at 52. Love of my life passed away. And I, after a year, decided to run.
Wow.
I had been living in China because his job was there. And so I don't believe in accidents or mistakes. And I believe that time is the thing we can't get back.
True.
Yet. I don't know about quantum. I don't know what's going to happen. But
Other worlds.
And it's the thing you can't really buy. And so to the extent that our work life is filled with purpose and positivity and joy and doing the right thing, and the extent that we have diseases cured, like cancer, you called him Ted Blunt. That was my dad's name, and he passed of cancer 2 years ago. And so I was like, you know, to the extent that we can have quality time, that to me would be
it's everything.
A great thing.
I have no doubt that your husband is just beaming with pride at what you have done. And I lost my dad. He was 49 to cancer. Again, not detected, stage 4. And, you know, time is everything and what we do with it. And I'm grateful to the 2 of you for spending most of your days and probably a lot of your nights putting your time and energy where it matters for the American people. So thank you for this conversation. I hope you have many more of them ahead. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.